That's a great question. That's a great question. Yeah, I think we're in a situation where number one, we've got to be consistent. We've got to make the routine plays on a consistent basis, day in and day out, rep in, rep out. We can't afford to be in a spot where we don't make those plays. But as fall camp goes on, the way that it's situated is usually the first couple of days are more normal downs, and as it goes, you start to get into more situational football. We have got to be great on third down. We have got to be great in the red zone. That's where we have to excel, and we've got to be great in 2-minute drives. That's where quarterbacks make their money. And so we're in a spot where we're getting more and more of those situations every day. So it's an opportunity for those guys to go out and compete. And it's exciting. I think they're pushing each other. I think everyone in the room is really good for each other right now. And as we come out of this thing, I think that we'll be a very strong quarterback room, and that's to me was the most exciting about this.
It looked like Julian was more comfortable out there those first few days than maybe he was in the spring. Is that something you've noticed with him going from spring to camp?
I think across the board, all three of those guys have got more and more comfortable. Just when you step into spring ball, right, there's got to be corrections, there's got to be adjustments, there's got to be things that you're working on every single day, and then you give them stuff that they have to work on in the summer, and they're grinding through those different looks, and they're watching a lot of tape, and getting on the field and getting extra work in, and that's the goal. That all three of them took a step from spring ball into fall camp, and I'm confident that they did.
Beyond just getting extra reps, what did you want to see from camp that showed that you got that progress from?
Yeah, I think there's so much to quarterback play, right? So to sit here and go through all those things, we could be here all day. But as simple as things as our footwork, as our base, as making sure that we're getting to the target, as making sure that we're in a spot where our back foot's connected to the ground and it's underneath our back hip, and we're powerful and using everything we have from the ground. Decision making, getting our eyes in the right spot every snap, to know exactly what we're looking at, to be able to recognize pre-snap what we think the defense is going to do, and then post-snap, can we confirm that's what the defense does? Okay, and having a plan, right? What if it's not the look that I thought it was going to be? Now what? Where do my eyes need to be, and how does that affect my decision? But constantly playing those games, both on the field, but also I think it's just as important to play that in your head. We talk to those guys all the time that we're laying around at bed and maybe watching some film and look at a clip and it'll be, okay, what would I do here on this play? What would I do here on this play? And constantly challenging your mind to play with an imagination, even when we're not out there on the field doing it, is an opportunity to grow, is an opportunity to get better. And maybe somehow mentally I can put myself in that position. So if I do get a look that hadn't shown up on tape all year long, but they give us a different look on defense than maybe they've shown, I'm ready for that moment.
Where have you seen Lincoln grow?
What's that?
Where have you seen Lincoln grow?
Well, number one, he's an Iron Buckeye, so which is pretty incredible. Obviously, we know that's a big deal around here, and his work in the weight room was tremendous. So as an athlete, we've definitely seen that. And then, on top of that, we've seen him grow as a leader. He's more vocal. His presence is felt. I think he's playing with a little bit of an edge to him, which is good to see. I think you have to play that position with a little bit of an edge without, ever getting too high or too low, and that's contagious. So we're seeing that right now from Lincoln. And then, as far as mechanically it goes, we're definitely seeing Lincoln get the ball out quick. I think he's accurate. I think that his base has improved. There's been, a couple of things that in the spring he was working on with his footwork, and we've seen some drastic improvements that way.
With Lincoln specifically, you know that he's got the black jersey on. A lot of his athleticism probably gets taken away by blowing the play dead or things like that. How do you see him as an athlete in that regard, while also not being able to see it as much on the practice field since he's not live?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can't see it to the full extent as though you go live. But we still see it. We still see it. There's times when he's extending plays or stepping up through the pocket and taking off and going. And there's no question. Lincoln's a great athlete, and that's got to be something that he plays to his strengths. That's got to be something that his game has in it, which he's shown to do a great job of. He's made a couple plays throughout spring where he's extended the play and kept his eyes downfield and made some great throws. So that's, although we can't see that quite as well because we're not going live, there's still definitely a feeling for that.
He does a lot of that athleticism guard, and I'm sure there are things that Julian does really well. How do you make sure that those guys are trying to win the competition on what they do well, but also making them get out of their comfort zone so they're being thrust into positions that maybe they're not super comfortable with to show you guys that they can do those things?
Yeah, I mean, you know, as we script practice and we go through it, we try to be extremely detailed in the different reps that everyone's getting, and it's not like, you know, we would ever script a certain play on purpose because it fits someone's strengths better. You know, we want them to run the offense. You know, the offense is always going to adjust to the skill set of the players that are in the entire offense. But at the end of the day, you know, the offense is going to be the offense. So from a decision-making perspective, from a throw perspective, those guys are going out there and getting those reps and competing in it.
Joey, I assume that at this point of training camp, you're not really thinking in terms of who's ahead. At what point do you need to start thinking that way, or are you just right now it's pure development and we'll get there?
Yeah, right now we're just taking it day by day, and really period by period on the field, meeting by meeting off the field. You know, and you know, the one thing that's pretty cool is those guys are very competitive and they push each other hard, and they're ultimately really good for each other because they both make each other uncomfortable because, you know, they're both very good players. You know, and Tavian's right there with them, included in that mix, and above all of that, they're still friends. You know, I think what's pretty cool right now is just, you know, you walk into that quarterback room and you got a bunch of really, really good guys that all get along well and you know, are willing to help each other out and give each other pointers and tips if they see something. And you know, it's an enjoyable environment to be around every day. But ultimately, those guys are competing. You know, they're going out there and they're trying to win the job. And I think they realize that every moment is important and every period is important, and they're going out there trying to get it done.
One last question, folks. When you talk about a quarterback getting the ball out quicker, how much of that is, you know, efficiency of mechanics, and how much of that is mental? Like how quickly they see something to then get the ball out fast?
Definitely a combination of both. You know, I think when you look at a concept, you know, how quick can I process the information I'm getting from the defense? And the way that I can process that information quickly is, where are my eyes? Are my eyes in the right spot? If I'm looking at the right thing and I can anticipate what that defender is going to do and make a decision and get the ball out, right? That's a major factor in it. And then there's also a piece of it, right, that comes down to the mechanics as well. But I think more than anything, you know, it's about making sure my eyes are in the right spot, making sure that I'm trusting what my read is, and making sure that I'm getting the ball out and making a great decision with the football.
Coach Fessler, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.